Hi, my name is Cordereo Bentley. I am interviewing Mrs. Inez Remmer and Lindsay, and we are at 10 Blymeyer Avenue. Today's date is May 24th, 2011, and the time is 1:47 p.m. 1:47 p.m. How y'all doing today?
Okay.
So were you born in Mansfield?
Born in Mansfield? No, I wasn't born in Mansfield. No, I was born in Alabama.
Alabama. Before you were.
I was born in Mansfield. She was young when she came here.
Yeah.
He didn't ask that, man.
Why did your family choose to settle in Mansfield?
Well, my father, he was transferred from Tennessee to a job at Humphreys. Old Humphreys used to be on Fifth Street, and that was where he was transferred there from Tennessee. And then he moved to family, me and my sister and my brother here. So that was in 1929, and I've been in Mansfield just about ever since.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I had a brother and sister, both of them passed.
You had any brothers or sisters?
That's my daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm the oldest of 9. She had 9 children.
So what was life like in your family?
As a family, when
Like
we
growing
first
up?
come to Mansfield,
Yeah.
well, as I said, it was my mother, father, sister, and brother. We lived on 5th Street, on Elm and 5th Street. All them little houses torn down now, but we were living on there. But we lived right there, and then we moved out to that's the north end
That's
of the
east side,
on the east side. We moved to the east side out there,
off of Great Street.
off of Great Street.
Oakenwall.
Oakenwall.
That's where I was born, over on Oakenwall.
Mhm.
I know where that's
I
at.
live over that way now.
So you said I heard you mention that your dad worked at Humphreys.
Humphreys, yeah.
What
The
did-
old Humphreys.
What did your mom do?
My mother was more like a housekeeper, and she did housekeeping, things like that. Mm-hmm.
She worked for a lot of the business people. She worked for Dr. Beatty.
She did that.
And the one that's Beatty Clinic is named after. And then Grandma worked for
It's Young. The
Miss
Youngs.
Young. Her
Yeah.
husband was the milk inspector for the county.
Mm-hmm.
And she worked for a couple lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
As domestic housework.
She's a domestic washer, yes.
I used to go with her over to Dr. Beatty's house. They were on West First Street, where right behind the funeral home where it is now, because those 2 big lions are sitting out there. That used to be their doorway, and we used to spend the night over there. He had like 12 kids. We were just talking about those kids the other day. I remember all those names.
So where did you go to school? Where did you?
Well, I lived in Mansfield because I got married. I married here in Mansfield, 1930. 1930. 1930.
You went to school she started school at Bushnell.
Okay, then that's that. Well, yes. Where I went to school at?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I went to Bushnell School. We used to be on 4th Street. West side there, they got that.
It used to be the post office, and then it changed to be the handicap center.
It's a handicap now out there now. Yes, I went to Bushnell School, and I went to Hedges School, and I went to John Simpson, I went to senior high.
Are there any teachers that you remember especially?
Any teachers? Well, I remember our old principal used to have Spector, Mr. Roy Spector. He was a Simpson from Bushel, I think, for a long time. And for my teachers, half of them, I can't remember the younger ones. Was in the first or second grade, but I was always out to John Simpson. I remember the Craig sisters. Quite a few was there, but I can't remember all those names.
Were you involved in any activities?
Activities? My activities, well, I worked around Mansfield at O'Neill's, and I worked there for 27 years. O'Neill's used to be downtown. I started working down there, and then I went to Ontario when they moved down to Ontario. So I've been about 27 years there.
I forget you was up here at the.
Oh, and I worked at daycare.
She did the adult daycare. She was the first
adult
daycare center coordinator.
Yeah, I was coordinator there.
What year did you graduate from high school?
What did we do?
What year did you graduate?
Last year I was from school. What year did you go?
I was born in 40, so you was talking about school like 39.
About 39.
Did you go to college?
I went to business college. There used to be a business college down there on off of Park Avenue East. I went to business school there because I was secretary of my church for about 30 years there. I served as secretary. And that's about that. I worked a lot of activities around, like town social work. I did a lot of work back then. And I was a president of the Akron district for years. That used to be it's a sort of a part of the church.
Northern
Ohio.
Northern Ohio District
Association. I was president for that. And first church I went to was out on Wayne Street. We had a church on Wayne Street, which is the Shiloh Baptist now. It was Shiloh Baptist then, but it was downtown on Main Street. And when the Westinghouse took over all that area,
it's 5th Street, but
it's on Wayne Street.
Wayne Street.
Like that. It used to be Wayne Street used to go all the way to 4th Street. But then when they cut Westinghouse got there, it cut down all that. So the church had to move. The church moved on 2nd Street. Then I moved back to Cleveland. And I stayed in Cleveland about 10 years before coming back to Mansfield. And that was 1950, I think, I come back to Mansfield. And been in Mansfield ever since.
Yeah, that's we moved out there on Bowman Street, across from the steel mill then.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was in what was that grade? 5th grade.
When my husband was still living, we moved over there on 1950, I think it was 1950, we moved over there to the steel mill. And I stayed there 62 years before I got handicapped sickness a little bit. And I had to go to a nursing home. And my children decided I couldn't be able to take care of the house. So they decided,
the house is still sitting there. Nobody said it.
The house is still there, yeah. I'm trying to get rid of it. But I lived there. So around the old steel mill used to be a lot of noise around there, but I enjoyed it until they tore it all down. And it was the quietest thing you ever been around you. Oh yeah, it was. I miss it. I miss the steel mill most of all.
Trains made a lot of noise. It seemed like a train came through every couple hours, when you lived in the house. All that noise. And those smokestacks, you hang your clothes outside and all that black smoke would come over and get on the clothes.
Yes. It's terrible. As I said, I had 9 kids, at least I had 7 living kids. And I had 2 pass. And but that's what I said, most of them was raised right out here on Bowman Street. Most of them went to school. Some graduated, everything, but now I got two sons now, two handicaps. One of my youngest son, he was born with cerebral palsy, and he's still handicapped, but he's 57 years old, runs his own apartment, and everything like that. But he never talked, but he gets around fine.
Yeah.
I bring him here with me for sometimes, and he stays a couple hours, and we eat and have enjoy time. But he enjoyed it. Now he graduated too from high school.
Yeah, from Malabar.
From Malabar, he never talked, but he did all his basic education and all that. So Mansfield sure have changed a lot though since I've left here.
Yeah, I started in 6th grade up at Creveling School. Well, it was Bowman Street School, and then they were building the Creveling School, so we had to go up to West 5th, catch a bus up there every day until they got the new school built. So I think it was done about the very last part of the 6th grade. And then I went to John Simpson. But,
About what year was that?
52. 1952, I think, because I was 12 years old then. Yeah. I just went to John Simpson. They had the school bus, the city bus, they didn't have no school buses. They had the city bus pick you up right there on the corner of right at Crystal Spring, right in front of our house almost. Take you up to school.
But before she went to school there, we used to have a streetcar running on Bowman Street, out past the steel mill there. Because we had streetcars on 4th Street because the barn, the bus barn was right on 4th Street there, right on the corner, right across from Elm Street. You know what Elm Street is?
Yeah.
Elm Street run between 5th and 4th Street there. We used to have a bus barn there.
What is a streetcar?
Streetcar?
Yeah.
What is a streetcar?
Yeah.
It's one.
It looks like a train. It looks like a train,
trolley.
like a trolley car, like a train, but it was the city bus, really, like a city bus.
Oh.
Yeah. You see them sometimes in the big cities. They have them, but they just took those tracks up because the tracks used to run
Still
right
there.
down 5th Street, right next to what is that building there? The tracks
Oh,
ran straight down 5th Street.
Right
They
down
just
5th.
took those up in the last few years.
Yeah, they had.
And you say there was one that ran out Bowman as well?
Yeah, one
Yeah.
always
Really?
up on
So
Street,
was the
yes.
point to go out to the steel mill?
Yes, it went
And
out
then-
that way. It went out that way further out. And I don't know how far it went out.
Okay.
I know it went bypass our house.
Interesting.
And we lived on Bowman right before you get to Crystal Spring.
Yeah.
And when we lived out there on Bowman Street, all that was not in city limits, you know. And they just annexed that over to Crystal Spring as part of Mansfield.
Right.
Because we had to change our post office and everything because we was out of city limits.
City limits stopped at Longview, didn't it?
Long below was stopped at Crystal Spring. It stopped at Crystal Spring at
Before
first.
that.
Right, yeah.
It stopped at Longview.
That's Longview. And they ended on out to Crystal Spring. And,
Because most of the black people live down past
Longview.
Longview, but really down, where the steel mills, I'd say where the steel mill started, right there at Grandview. Because there was no black people up above there. Nobody lived past there. And you couldn't even buy a house up there because they weren't going to let you.
Now,
But-
I'm sorry, what era would that have been? Are we talking
And
the
when I
40s,
was a teenager,
50s?
in the
or
50s.
The 50s?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because even going to school, it was so funny. Coming from school, if you're coming down Bowman Street, the black kids walked on the left-hand side, white kids walked on that side of Bowman Street going home and I don't know why, it was just always like that. Like they have all this here kids at Johns Park. No black kids went to Johns Park. Because that was all white area. You didn't go up there. Just in the later years that the white people moved away, and then more blacks moved up in that area. But there was no black people up that way at all.
Now, when we're talking north of Longview, now we've heard about the company line being on, I guess would probably be
That's off of Main Street.
Right, that's further east from where you guys are talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
Now, what did your neighborhood? Did they ever call? Was that considered called the North End? Was it?
It's the far north. They didn't. Everybody called them this North End thing was a new thing.
Okay.
Because it was as far north. Our house was the very last house on Bowman Street.
Okay.
Before you went around the corner, and when you went around the corner, that was Little Kentucky.
I see.
And we were the last house before you get to the steel mill, what's it called, the office, steel mill office, the payroll office. And we were the last house right at Crystal Springs. That was the end of it. And then you went around the corner, then you went out to Little Kentucky.
So there wasn't any sort of identifying the neighborhood. I mean, you know, people call their neighborhood. We've
they
heard
call
things
it,
like
what they call it, I wish I wore my t-shirt. We kids had a name for it.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't called the North End though.
No, it wasn't called it.
because we've heard things like the camps was one.
Right. Well, they call it the camps.
There was I've heard we've heard the Watchworks was also called Tombstone.
Well, the Watchworks is east side.
Right.
That's where we
Right,
live
where you were
now.
saying off of Oakenwald
Yeah,
and all that.
that's
right.
Watchwork.
Okay.
And then the Tombstone was Bowman Street because that's where they had, like where we live, there's 3 bars right in a row connected to each other. And then every Saturday night there was either a big fight or it was a big something going on.
see.
A lot of people got killed out there.
Oh boy.
And so that's when they start naming it Tombstone Territory.
Okay.
You know, but it was the entertainment of the black people, young people. I mean, you know, that went out to the bars. Because we had the 3 bars there. And now the first bar was an all-white bar. And then the next bar, that's where Hams was. And then the next bar was an all-white bar only. But they only opened up, they closed at an early age. The middle bar was where the black people was, and the first bar was where people from the Little Kentucky was, and they fought all the time too.
Okay.
And you know, Sunday morning you get up and you might see somebody laying out there on the sidewalk or something, or you know, it's just like that.
Now, what you're describing is out Bowman, like
On
out
Bowman
by
Street.
where you guys were living.
Right in front of
grew
our
up.
house. Our mailbox got knocked down every weekend
Oh my gosh.
because somebody ran into it some kind of way. It was just we weren't allowed to sit on the bottom steps. We had to sit on our steps up, but we were on a hill.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just sit there, just look around the corner to see what was going on all the time. But it was always something going on. Now on the corner of Crystal Spring was where they made the pop factory. They made, I know they had knee-high soda. Knee-high soda.
Okay.
And we used to go down and watch the pop fill up and cap it. And, you know, I think back to that time, I said, they made pop right there on the corner. Yeah.
It's funny. I think that's the place. One of the ladies referred to it as the Dr. Pepper factory. Now, does that?
They made all kinds of pop.
Okay.
They made all the pop right there.
That was
on
the
corner.
first I had heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I remember when they moved away. Because, I mean, how often did you get to drink pop as a young person, you know?
Yeah.
And we just go down there and watch it. Sometimes they'd give us a bottle of pop and everything. But see, now I call it pop. And when I got married and went to the service, people didn't know what I was talking about. They were from New York. They call it soda.
Mm-hmm.
But pop, they said, who are you talking about? Your dad? No, we drink pop. Yeah.
So what was the neighborhood like growing up?
Say that again.
What was like the neighborhood like?
On Bowman Street.
As far as like
What?
what stores and restaurants were like in the neighborhood?
Well, we had there's a hotel right up the street from us, but used to be
The Ebony Hotel.
there was a hotel there, and
That was black owned. I
Mhm.
mean, Mr. Wilhite did that.
so the neighborhood was the neighborhood. It was, I mean, kind of, I guess, kind of a scrawny neighborhood because, as we say, everybody there, most of the people that live on the further down up on Crystal Spring and things like that, those houses they just built, and the men's worked at the steel mill, and they got the scrap stuff from steel and built those houses, and half of what were fit to be living in, but the folks are living in them anyway, you know, and
There's a lot of houses up there.
there's a lot of houses out there, and folks had to leave there when they turned it, put in the city limits out there because the people couldn't afford to fix their houses up and things like that.
Tap into the city water line.
And water lines, they go. We was on Bowman Street now. We had good water and stuff like that. But we do know when we first moved out there, they had the outside
Everybody had outside
bath-
toilets
hot
and
toilets
everything.
and things like that. But then when they moved and said it had to be in the city limits, all that stuff had to be got rid of. Folks had roasted chickens, they had cows, and they had pigs, and everything out that way. But then, as I say, as the city went to
To annex.
town, answer Mansfield, they had to get rid of all that stuff. So,
And I went up Crystal Springs just the other day, and I was trying to figure out where was all those houses. They had to be this close together because the many families that lived up through there. I mean, is probably about 40 different families on one street, and now all the houses are gone except maybe 2 or 3. And you're trying to figure out, well, how was so and so's house right there? And there's 3 houses before you got to theirs, you know. And it's really, it was really packed in there. So there was a lot of people that when it was time to go to school, the bus would be crowded down there at the bus because everybody had to walk down the street. That was Crystal Spring. Then Lewis Street also had just as many people. Then it stopped at Charles Street, just as many people. So there was a lot of people living on what we call the North End, and that's why everybody now that say North End, 90% of the black people that live in Mansfield originated from North End, and they started spreading out as they got jobs in different places, you know. And we just had a program at our church, and we were seeing the different people that were little kids that have grown up, all North End people. And that's why that North End Association out there got so big, because when they start letting blacks buy houses above Longview, it was just like a explosion. They got houses that had plumbing and everything in it, you know. And so I remember my one friend when she got ready to start her daycare. I don't know if you talked to me. They didn't want to let her buy the house that she wanted because they said they couldn't sell it to her, and that was on Harker Street.
You're referring to Happy Time Child Care?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. See, we won't work together, and she really fought to get that house, and it just was unbelievable that you just couldn't get a house up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now they want to tear them all down. You know, you go down Johns Avenue and all them places, there's no black people on those streets, none. And I know a lot of people that lived on them because my Girl Scout teacher lived on one, and you know, it was just the thought that we were just fighting to get those old houses because past Longview was nothing but almost like shack houses. And the people come up through there and got the kids, got them educated and graduated, and they moved out. And the steel mill was a staple, you know. If you worked at the steel mill, they made good money. But they could only get certain jobs in there. They couldn't get in those hot mills where the big money, like $300 a week way back then was a bunch of money. But blacks could not work in those areas.
So my understanding is they gave the blacks the harder,
They were
more
the worst,
dangerous.
and they didn't get paid the big money.
Okay.
The part of the steel mill that's left right now was the part that made the great big money, and only whites worked there. And but the ones that did work, you know, they stuck in there, you know. Which was big. It was just like that at all the places, because my dad worked at Humphreys and the dirty jobs, and then he went to the Ohio Brass, the dirty jobs, you know, carrying that milk, you know, those guys. But I guess the work was the money. And then you wouldn't think it was, you know, if you made $85 a week, you were considered rich.
Yeah.
And then I went to work at the Westinghouse after I got married. You know, I worked down there 22 years. And we sit and talk about it. You could only work on the cleaning game down there. You couldn't get the line jobs, you couldn't get on a certain job. And then they opened it up, and then they still had certain jobs that women couldn't work, regardless of whether you was black or white.
Yeah.
And then they opened that up, you know, and it was an experience.
Yeah.
They just, you know, have a job. And now, I bet you right now, in this time, I bet those people wished any of those jobs were here,
Yeah.
because they're not here anymore.